Welcome back to Just Like Nana. This is Amy Penny Saylor, and I am thrilled to be here today with Erica Wallace Moore. Welcome, Erica.
Thank you, Amy. I'm happy to be here.
Erica is a Reiki master and instructor. She also reads Akashic Records. She is currently in practice at Wellness Paradigm in Minneapolis. And perhaps one of my favorite things about Erica is that she has identified two of her spiritual superpowers, and they are spot on: empathy and intuition.
Yes.
Love that. Can you say just a little bit more about that, how you sort of identified those as?
I feel like my Reiki practice has definitely allowed me to step into the space of considering myself an empath, and that my strongest superpower is empathy. I also have been doing a lot of work on my own around my family and my family upbringing, and generationally that where I come from a family of empaths, and just being able to embody like the feeling person that I am without having to shy away from it or turn it off has helped me identify. And then the intuition, like the empathy feeds intuition. And so being able to be a listener and a feeler helps me navigate my intuition.
There's a lot of talk about empaths, and a lot of times I don't want to say it focuses on the negative, but it focuses on some of the repercussions of being an empath, which is, perhaps a lack of boundaries or sort of the fallout from taking on so much of what others have to offer. And I love this view of an empath as, look, here's how it's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. And it also is a weight or a burden or cumbersome, because I just don't think that we've grown up ancestry or generationally, just in today's times, we haven't grown up with a positive perception of empath and empathy. It's hard to navigate boundaries, I would agree, but I think it is part of like our journey as empaths to find our boundaries and to be respectful of our boundaries and respectful of taking care of ourselves, even while we're feeling everything all at once at the same time.
Yeah, which can be overwhelming.
Yes.
Okay, I would love to start out, if you're willing to share, with one of your favorite or powerful or just a story you'd like to share about one of your grandmas.
I've been thinking about my grandmas in anticipation of this interview and this gathering together. So I have two grandmas, Grandma Hanson on my mother's side and Grandma Wallace on my father's side. And my Grandma Wallace was the one that I was closest to. She was Pauline Elvira Wallace, and her maiden name is McDowell. I spent most of like my early years closest to her. When my family lived in California. We even lived with her for a while. When I was sick as a child and my parents had to go to work, they would drop me off at my grandma's house. So I remember sleeping in the bed with her at times. I also remember she was a great cook. And so she would make me eggs any way I wanted them. She would say, "Baby, how do you want your eggs?" She always had a cat, and every cat was named Boots. She loved baseball. She loved sunflower seeds, and she was the best cook around everywhere. Everyone knew her as the best cook. And so we could, as her grandchildren, could always go to her and request recipes, and she would whip it out. She was also a great sewer, and so she was able to, you could give her an idea of a dress you wanted, and she would make it from scratch without a pattern. She was an amazing, tiny person. And I always say that she was like one of the people in my life who most validated me as a young person.
Aw, I love her name.
Yes.
It's a fantastic name. I don't want to be too polarizing here, but did she have a favorite baseball team?
Oh, the Oakland A's.
Okay. No questions asked.
No questions asked.
Can you just tell us a little bit about Reiki?
I would say my version of Reiki, there's a lot of language out there about Reiki, but my version of what Reiki is that it's a spiritual journey, a spiritual practice. As a personal person who is a Reiki practitioner and me being on the Reiki path, for me, it's a spiritual journey that's rooted in Buddhist concepts of like the Eightfold Path of right mindfulness, right speech, right intention, right work, right wisdom, right thoughtfulness. And so as a practitioner, it's my journey to practice the Eightfold Path by sitting in stillness, being aware, noticing. And then there's also the energetic aspect of Reiki. And that means like me touching myself with my hands, various parts of my body, and listening to my own energetic field. And then there's the hands-on approach to Reiki that is hands-on, touching other folks, being able to be a channel and a vessel for energy to flow through the universe and down into the person that is on the massage table. And they're able to feel what energy feels like in their body. Reiki is also a way of dissolving old, past, stuck, gunky energy that's no longer working for you. Just kind of dissolve it, let it go, and so that you can invite new energy into your being, so that you can cultivate well-beingness and health and vitality and vibrancy.
When you're talking about, letting go of the sort of gunky, stuck energy, is it fair to say that, although spiritually we're infinite, as sort of human beings here in a body, we have a finite capacity inside our body. And so we have to sort of get rid of the old that's not serving us any longer to make room for maybe a new pattern or a new energetic. Is that accurate?
Yes, I consider like energetic digestion. That we have a process of taking in energy the same way that we take in food as nutrients. And our body processes the nutrients, or our body processes the energy. And then once we're done with the energy, or it's, we've taken all the nutrients we need, that our body expels nutrients as waste. And so it's the same thing with energy. I feel like we're, part of the natural cycle of energetic digestion is taking in, processing, and release. But some things, just because we're humans, some things, and we have a consciousness, and we're on a journey here of discovery. We have stories and experiences that sometimes energy stays too long, or it could be like leftovers in the fridge. It's been in the fridge too long, and it might be a science experiment at this point. I don't even want to touch it. But at some point, we're going to have to get rid of the leftovers and consider it waste and return it back to the earth, return it back as organic energy or whatever, so that it can be recycled again, replenished, and renewed.
Let me ask you about energy, and I recognize this is a ginormous question that has all sorts of different angles and perspectives and all of that. So I do not expect you to be the authority in all things energy. But from your perspective, we think of things in terms of our five senses. I can see it, I can hear it, but we're also energetic beings living in an energetic field. Can you just sort of talk about, from your perspective, what that means?
Oh, that's a big question.
It is. It's not very fair.
I think that when I was blown away about energy was when I started reading about energy on the atomic level. So protons, electrons, and neutrons, that the smallest building block of all matter in the universe, the entire universe, is made up of electrons, neutrons, and protons. And so those to me those are just like the building blocks of energy. And then it's also the energetic field and how energy travels as waves. That's mind-blowing to me. So yeah, even as us as energetic beings, we're made up of the same energy as everything else in the universe, that when we get down to the basic level of who we are essentially energy. And I'm blown away by how all this energy is organized into a body. And then we also have an infinite soul that's also made up of energy. And so there's protons, electrons, there's atoms, but there's thoughts that are also energy that I like to, I don't know who came up with it first, but they're thoughttrons.
I love that.
So even emotions are energy. And so we have like the matter, let's say solid matter. All solid matter is made up of energy. So the wall, pieces of wood, rocks, brass, is all made up of energy. We are made up of energy. And so there's just this whole interconnectedness of like, we just live in one huge energetic universe. And so, like I was saying, there's solid energy, but then, the thoughts and emotions are also energy. They're just the unseen parts of energy. And so you can't see an atom, but you also can't, physically see a thought, but they're still both energy.
Right. That is such a great explanation. And I love, did you call them?
Thoughttrons.
Thoughttrons. I'm going to try to look that up and see if I can find the original source, and I'll credit that.
Maybe Elizabeth Gilbert was the first person I heard put that in her book.
Is it Big Magic? Is
Big
that
Magic,
what it was called?
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I love that book. Then I want to talk about sort of do you consider trauma energy as well?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes. Experience. Trauma is trauma. Trauma is energy, and trauma is an experience.
Okay. And let's just take a minute to sort of talk about trauma energetically, because trauma is a word that can mean a lot of things, obviously. So when you hear the word trauma, you can think of a car accident, sort of an unexpected big event that kind of changes the course of how your day was otherwise going. It can be sort of chronic trauma of I don't have enough access to food or whatever that is. And so sometimes I think there can be this notion of, well, if it's not important enough or if it's not a super big deal, it's not really trauma. But I think trauma encompasses more than that. And I'd like for you to address that on kind of an energetic level, what that means.
I feel like trauma is processed on an energetic level in the body as far as our cells go. Like our cells are taking in that information and like considering like cell damage when it comes to trauma and shaking things up and confusing our cells, and their cells don't know how to react. I think it's just energetic information that it's just, we're not meant to like go through certain things that are just so horribly tragic and devastating. Just even some of the trauma stories I've heard and have like been fortunate and humbled enough to hold space for. Trauma is energetic, I think, because it's our cells are communicating, or there's like a misfiring of information, and also with our central nervous system and the way our central nervous system processes energy. And so trauma can like have a snap trigger effect into our stress system, our central nervous system, and can trigger cortisol dumping and adrenaline. And I think that's just all a lot of energy moving around. It's like in a jar, or in our body just doesn't have a place to go. And so like, it could kind of stays with us. And our cells are, trying to interpret or shake it off or whatever. I think trauma is really hard for like cell growth and cellular health.
That's fascinating. You talked about we're also infinite souls with all of this energy inside of, or maybe not inside of, but as part of a finite body in this earth. Can there be, even if it's not a recognized, oh, you were hungry or you were hit or something like that, can there be sort of, you mentioned that your grandma was one who really validated and saw you as a girl. Can that be traumatic if your soul feels like I'm not recognized or seen for who I am, or those around me are trying to make me something different or don't understand? What is that like?
As well, that it could be layered trauma, chronic trauma, that when we are developing as human beings, we come into this body with a soul that's like complete, but then we're experiencing life in this body. And we have cycles of growth. And so when we're small and we're developing in this lifetime, it's so important for us to have nurturing and stability and safety and love and being held, and people who are supposed to take responsibility for us and supposed to encourage us and help us be seen in the world and help us become hopefully good citizens. And when those things don't happen, it does become trauma. It becomes like hard to even self-actualize. And, I think it becomes like I don't want to say an automatic thing, but it can lead to hardship. Going through young life as a young adult or a young person and having that kind of trauma, like it just carries over into adulthood, especially if we weren't given the resources to heal as children, especially if our caregivers had trauma as well and they didn't have the resources. So that's.
And I do want to be clear, we talk about sort of our families, and just like Nana, we want to assume best intentions. And I understand there are those who've experienced something who can't assume best intentions, and that's fine. But overall, we just want to think of those as people who were doing the best they could with what they had.
Yes.
And we don't want to focus on blaming, but
Right.
also just understanding and acknowledging and seeing how that played out in
Yes.
us is
Right.
incredibly
Right.
powerful.
And it leads to the healing process of forgiveness, because it's placing blame on the people who came before us when they just didn't have the resources. There's a lot of technological advances. I also feel like it's been slow growing in our consciousness as human beings.
Yeah.
And so the level of consciousness and awareness that we have right now, my mom would have never been doing a podcast.
Right.
My grandma definitely, that technology wasn't there. And then being able to have woman-to-woman conversations like this
Yes.
and even talk about trauma or acknowledge trauma, that just wasn't part of the collective consciousness the way it is now. Being lucky enough to be able to have conversations like this as like, oh, we are evolving in our awareness and we are evolving in our consciousness. And part of the healing of like, oh, I get to speak and have a voice and have a conversation with you. And this conversation is a way of healing generational stuff that our mothers and grandmothers and aunties didn't get to have to do or have.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, when I think of it too, I think of, just how fortunate a lot of us are. And I think about, so for example, I'm writing a book about my grandmas, and I'm thinking of my grandma who came from Bavaria to Illinois. They had a plot of land. I mean, let's just say she wasn't going to Target to pick up the groceries for the week.
Right.
So, her time was spent, okay, I'm cultivating a garden, I'm trapping animals or whatever was going on to feed her family of 8 girls.
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't time
Right.
to stop and reflect.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Let's talk about ancestral trauma. So I'm curious about your view of ancestral trauma and then how that intersects with Reiki.
When it comes to ancestral trauma, I'll say my own experience of like, okay, diabetes is a traumatizing experience to live with. It also runs in my family. Let's see, I've got mental health things down the line with family. So, and then another experience or something trauma that has carried down through my family line is the trauma of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery on my father's side, and how that energy after 200 years is still, or 150 years, whatever it is still carried through in our awareness and our consciousness.
Yeah.
That though I haven't experienced slavery, the empathy I have for my ancestors and the hardship and trauma that they went through, like it's like a personal thing that I carry, that I think a lot of people who are African American experience of this, carrying through this trauma and this healing, and like carrying also this grief. Like where does this grief isn't personal, but I somehow I'm connected to this grief because I'm connected to my ancestors.
Right.
So yeah, I do think there's a difference between like the trauma you experience in this lifetime and the trauma that carries through your ancestral lines. And so yeah, the healing aspect of that, like for me, I would say it's like raising my vibration energetically.
Okay.
So that I'm not like stuck down in that historical trauma low vibe. And so it's about maintaining my high vibration of love and light and blessings and moving forward.
Do you feel when you do that you offer some sort of healing to your ancestors?
I do. And I also have had moments where my ancestors say, but that's not your responsibility to heal us.
Yeah.
Our ancestors are like, we're watching you. We're lighting all the light on you. We want you to move it forward in your path. We don't want you to look backward and feel like you have to heal us. And so as I said, when I'm moving forward and maintaining a high vibration, I think that is healing to like behind me, but it's not also like not my responsibility.
Wow. I have goosebumps. That's beautiful. As a Reiki practitioner, and of course, I'm not asking you to speak to anyone specific, but can you differentiate? Can you sense with your intuition sort of, wow, this is really old and it's in here. Let's go ahead and release this? Or how does that work?
Yeah. So in the Reiki path, in the hands-on healing system, there's a thing called Bajosin.
Oh.
And Bajosin is that stuck energy that it's stubborn and is not quite ready or reluctant to dissolve or move away. And sometimes that bajilson is really, really stubborn. And so I have a reaction where I'm like coughing or I'm sweating, and I have to go walk away from the body, come back to the body, get a drink of water, ask my helpers and guides for help. I ask for the client's help as well from their guides. And so, yeah, there are patterns or times where it's like, oh, this is really deep-seated. And there are other times where like, oh, this just went away so fast.
Okay. Wow. Fascinating. And do you feel like sometimes some of the energy becomes unstuck, but some is holding on for dear life?
Right. I feel like, okay, we cleared enough so that they can move on, or they can feel some lightness, but the work continues. I mean, so I don't think my opinion is that there's not a one-time Reiki session where you're healed in all things.
Right.
Because for me, it is a journey that I think, it's part of like going to therapy. Like you go over time and peel away the layers over time. And so even though there might be like something deep-seated in one session, that's like, okay, I feel some movement. There's still probably layers and layers of stuff to uncover. And even my own experience of giving myself Reiki, I'm like, in my journey, like, oh, okay, I've gotten to this new area of discovery. Now let's move forward in this, and then getting to a step or a certain awareness, and then, okay, now let's uncover more. And so, I don't think you're meant to know everything all at one time. That would be overwhelming. And so, I feel like it's step by step.
Yeah.
Uncovering the layers.
Well, and you had mentioned, our central nervous systems. And I think that's part of it too. We can only take on so much at once. Or like you said, it's complete overwhelm and just shut down.
Yeah, just shut down. Right. The other part of Reiki, the hands-on, one outcome, I would say it's an outcome, but not a goal, is the relaxation. And so when you come in and we're stressed and we're in flight, fight, freeze, it is impossible to heal in that high stress cortisol, because our central nervous system is just like trying to keep us safe. And so when we get into that rest and restoration, relaxed state of beingness is when our cells are like, oh, okay, now we can do some work. Now we can, it's like, being in a library.
Right.
Our cells and our energy can focus and concentrate and be more aware.
So for the listeners, I have had Reiki sessions with Erica, and I know that she really creates a safe place and sort of a container, for lack of a better word, where you just feel held and safe. So thank you for that.
Yes. You're welcome. That's definitely my intention, is to create safe space, because you want to feel safe. We need to feel safe. And I think part of the empathy or whatever is like, let me hold you and let you feel safe so that you can do this work.
Okay, this is a really big, broad question. Okay. So if nothing pops to mind, it's completely fine. Are there certain patterns that you notice with your clients of energy or ancestral energy that seems to be there and want to be seen and want to be released?
I would say yes, but not with every client. I would say also, like, we come into Reiki sessions with intentions. So I feel like it's intention based. And if a client is ready, if their system is ready to discover or be curious about those things show up. And I want to say yes, more specifically when people coming in with grief and loss, they're open. And so sometimes ancestors come in, loved ones come in, different images. I feel like my father, who passed away 20 years ago, like he's like always in sessions with me. And so he'll even...
He wants to help.
Yes, he'll pick up on ancestral patterns. Like, oh, I brought this person to you, and they're wherever we are, their loved one talked to me. And so now, so sometimes it feels like my father is like behind the scenes, bringing people in, whose loved ones are on the other side communicating.
And was your father a church man?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he was a pastor. A Lutheran pastor, and he also taught theology.
Okay, so he's still helping. He can't stop himself.
He can't stop it. Yes.
One question I want to ask, and this is a little bit personal, so if it's too far, just tell me. But you've talked about having access to your ancestors and your guides and things like that. So for the listener who wants to become closer to their ancestors, do you have any tips, advice, recommendations?
Sure. I don't think it's not complex. I would say, being open and willing is like step number one. And then I would say going into a space that's safe, quiet, and space where you can sit and be still and just ask, and be open to whatever messages or images or whatever you receive, and then being able to acknowledge and without judgment that, yes, this was one of my ancestors connecting with me. But I think it's, safe space, quiet, and stillness and asking. That's all I would say.
That's beautiful. Yeah, and kind of an open heart.
Yes, open-heartedness for sure.
Where can people find you?
On my website, Erica Wallace Moore Reiki.com. And you could also Google Erica Wallace Moore Reiki. It's easy to find.
And you're definitely going to want to check out Erica's website because she has an adorable picture of her dog on it as well, in addition to all the great information on Reiki. Well, I know you have people waiting for Reiki sessions today.
I do. I have one later this evening.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I will let you get to that, but I'm so appreciative of you being here. And is it Pastor Wallace?
Yes. Pastor Richard Wallace was my father's name.
Okay. For him being here as well, if he's here. Thank you, Pastor Wallace. And thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you to your ancestors as well.
Oh, thank you. They appreciate that. The Elizabeths. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So excited you were here today. Thank you so much for listening. I would love to hear your story. If you're interested in sharing it, please go to justlikenana.com to submit your story. There are also resources there if you're interested in learning more about discovering your ancestry or breaking some trauma cycles in your family. I have an ask of you. If you enjoyed today's show, I would love if you subscribed and let a friend know they might enjoy it as well. Talk to you again next week. Can't wait. Just Like Nana's theme song was written and performed by Carter Penny.